session of TEDx is The Unseen. I will begin with a question which I'd like you to focus on, which hopefully will throw some light on the unseen. And the question is, where does government come from? Obviously, the question is simple, it is simplistic, it is childish, everybody knows where the government comes from. But a little reflection, hopefully, will show us the unseen. I have asked this question to hundreds of audiences in the country, in universities, in schools, in colleges, in social gatherings like the Rotary Club and the Lions Club. Obviously, I cannot ask the question here because the format is not interactive, so therefore we'll have to go by the answer that I provide. And the answer is that everybody I ask this question to says, we elect the government. It is very heartening for me to hear that, because that tells me how deep has the concept of democracy seeped into the Indian psyche. And that's a matter of great satisfaction, pride, joy to me. But when I pursue this a little further and ask people, if you select the government, how exactly do you do that? And they tell me they vote in the elections. Then I get a little deeper and say, when you go into a polling booth, do you vote for what shall be the government? Who shall be the government? They think a bit and they are a little confused. And then I tell them, or do you vote for one of the 6, 8, 12, 14, 24, 42 candidates on the ballot or on the electronic voting machine, the EVM? This is a little simpler to handle. They say, yes, we vote for one of the candidates. Then I ask people, where do candidates come from? And they say anybody can stand and contest the election. Next question is, if anybody can stand and contest the election, how many people stand a realistic chance of getting elected or winning the election? Then we get a little more specific and people say maybe 2 or 3. And then I ask them, would you like to vote for somebody whom you are absolutely certain will lose the election? Or would you like to vote for somebody who has a reasonably good chance of getting elected? Obviously, all of us want our efforts, including our vote, to be effective and not utterly useless, and which we know from the start. So people prefer to vote for a candidate who has a reasonably good chance of winning. And those, in people's perception, are only 2 or 3 in every constituency. And then I ask them, how do these 2 or 3 become candidates? After a certain reflection and certain deliberation, people say they get tickets from political parties, which is called the nomination or support of a political party to contest the election on behalf of the political party. So then I ask people, then does that mean that you vote for a person who has already been chosen by a political party? And the answer after certain thinking is yes. And if you pursue this line of argument a little further, we will find that the choice of a voter is pre-constrained by the choices made by a set of political parties. Whether that set of political parties 2, 3 or 4 in any election, or 5 or 6, which is quite rare. But the fact is, a voter can effectively vote only for one of the people who have been chosen or pre-selected by a political party. And I repeat the sentence, the choice of a voter is pre-constrained by the choices made by a set of political parties. So this is whom we vote for. Political parties control, in a way, whom we can vote for. So that's one part of the story. A person is able to get the nomination of a political party, then also spends a fair amount of money, does a lot of hard work, and let's not be cynical about like the computer here. Good people do a lot of work and get elected. Once elected, they go and sit in the parliament or the state assembly. Do they have the choice to vote for or against a bill that comes to parliament or state assembly for discussion, debate and voting? Once again, after some reflection, the answer is no, not really. And then I asked them why. I am told that there is an anti-defection law in the Schedule 10 of the Constitution, which says that if a member of parliament or state assembly votes against the whip issued by his or her political party, his or her membership of the parliament or state legislature can be terminated. So, in other words, the choice of and here I am being a little cynical, the choice of a so-called elected representative is totally controlled by the political party that he or she represents. So look at these two sentences. Number one, which I have already said twice. One, the choice of a voter is pre-constrained by the choices made by a set of political parties. Sentence number two, the choice of an elected representative is completely controlled by the political party which he or she represents. If you read these two statements together, we get a hint of the unseen. Where does the government come from? What is common between these two statements? The choice of a voter is pre-constrained by a set of political parties. The choice of an elected representative is totally controlled by his or her political party. What is common is political party. So the unseen, ladies and gentlemen, which forms the government are a set of political parties. Now this would be fine. I would have no problem with this, or I would not have any sense of discomfort about this. But we are, and there's no denying and there's no questioning the statement, we are a vibrant democracy. India is the largest democracy in the world. It is also about the most vibrant. And Indian democracy, if you compare it to all the countries on India's perimeter or borders, you can go anti-clockwise or clockwise. Indian democracy is in a much better shape than democracy anywhere else in our neighborhood, all around us. Test one. The second test is the countries in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, which got independence from colonial rule around the 1940s and 50s. If you look back around the world and look at all those countries that became independent around the 1940s and 50s, and look at the state of democracy there, and look at the state of democracy in India, India stands as a shining example. So Indian democracy is alive and well, my friends, but the government is formed by political parties. Are political parties democratic in their internal functioning? That is the $1 million question, or the 2,000 rupee question. Political parties are supposedly the pillars of democracy in the country. And on these pillars, at the last count, there were 1,055 of them. On these pillars stands the superstructure of democracy, which is very vibrant and solid. But the pillars are hollow. This is why we criticize the government. Last 40 years I've been hearing, the government doesn't do this, the government doesn't do that. Everything that happens in the world, even if Donald Trump gets elected, the government of India is responsible. How do we improve governance? How do we improve government? The answer, my friend, does not lie in the wind. It lies in getting political parties to become internally democratic. Why don't political parties want to be democratic? Because the established leadership of political parties is unsure that if there were democratic elections, they will be elected or they will not be elected. There is a disconnect between the established leadership of political parties and their membership itself, what to talk of people at large. How do people get chosen to become candidates? You pick up a candidate from airlift a candidate from Hyderabad and airdrop him in Moradabad. For 3 days, nobody, members of this particular party, are willing to distribute flyers of this candidate because they wanted their own person to be contesting the election. And after 3 days, when this person offered 5 times the going rate of daily wage, people started distributing flyers for him, and finally he won. That is a separate story. If candidates were elected by members of the political party in a constituency in a democratic way, will they have to spend so much money? No. The fact is, if political parties could be made internally democratic, a lot of problems of Indian democracy, Indian elections could be dealt with, not totally removed. Because democracy is not a perfect outcome. There's a cliche which says democracy is a destination, is a journey, not a destination. We can never be in a state where we say democracy is perfect and now we can sit back and relax. But who is responsible for making democracy better and better? We see that the established leadership of political parties, hence by extension political parties, don't seem to be interested in doing so. Not because they are venal or mean, but they are afraid of change. Fear of change is a universal phenomenon. This job can only be done by citizens, by media, and by the judiciary working together. The ultimate responsibility lies on the citizen. Unless we as citizens take our role seriously, we all know about our rights, but we forget about our duties and responsibilities. Unless we take politics back from politicians, the state of democracy in India will not improve. It is reasonably good, but it can be far better. And it is for you and me, all of us, to make it happen. Thank you very much.